All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Julie Shields Rutina, and I am the Senior Director of College Planning, Education, and Training at MEFA. And I'd like to welcome you to our webinar this evening, College Athletics in Admissions. And we're very fortunate to have our expert presenter that has done this for us for numerous years, Mike Janicki, who is a counselor at Old Rochester Regional High School. And I will just give a couple of logistics and then I'm going to turn it right over to you, Mike. But on the screen, you will just see all the places where you can connect with MEFA, especially on social media, Facebook, uh, on X, on Instagram, LinkedIn. We have a MEFA podcast where we talk about all kinds of topics in the world of higher education and wider than that. So if you have questions, thank you for if you have questions during the presentation, just throw them in the Q&A and I will either, interrupt Mike and we'll answer them then, or we can wait till the end, but put them in the Q&A. And we do disable the chat just so I don't have to look in both places. And then know that I am recording the presentation. So tomorrow you'll receive a link with the recording and with the slides. So you'll have those. You don't have to take a whole lot of notes. And I think many of you probably know MEFA, but for those of you who don't, please know we've been around since 1982. And we have the same mission that we had then to help families plan, save, and pay for college. So please visit the MEFA website often. Check out our other webinars. There's just a wealth of resources there. And we're also always available if you want to email us at collegeplanning at mefa.org, or if you want to call us. So we work with students and families all the time, all year round. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Julie. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Just to give a heads up of kind of the talking points, we'll first describe what the NCAA is, what the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics and National Junior Collegiate Athletic Association, how they differ from each other, divisions between 1, 2, and 3. We'll talk about eligibility in terms of recruiting and maintaining eligibility, what you should be doing, now as even as early as 7th, 8th grade, freshman year, right through graduation. And then kind of the piece that people really want to hear is the search process, and how to get on coach's radar. So really quickly, we'll talk first about the NCAA. This is the college athletics that everybody knows and loves. This is March Madness. This is the college football championship we all just watched on TV. It is just about 500,000 student athletes. And I'm going to go back to that term a number of times. Student athlete. It's always, always, always student first. The one thing that we talk about is you're no good to a coach, you're no good to a team if you haven't maintained the academics and you're no longer academically eligible. So we want to stress always, 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 it's a student athlete. NCAA this is where, people talk about the differences between divisions 1, 2, and 3. We'll do a little bit about that on the next slide, but just be aware some things to just put out there. The differences between the divisions are not based on competitiveness or who's better than the other. It's really determined by the college, by the university in terms of finances, resources allocated to the athletic department. This is 90 championships. We all know and love the March Madness in football, but really it's everything not right down, but all the way through, including rifle and archery and bowling. So there's a sport just for everybody. But this is kind of the college athletics that everybody kind of refers to. Just to kind of talk a little bit about the differences between Division One, Two, and Three. Being a student athlete at the Division One level, it really is. It's no joke. It's the equivalent of a full-time job. Um, Having a nephew playing basketball at the Division One level, um, the time he spends at this point is, when we say 40 hours a week as a full-time job, it can really be considerably more. Summer, there is no off season. There's a season where the games are played, but practices, workouts, academics, classes, tape, weight room. It is legitimately a year-round, away from home, on campus kind of thing. Um, there's a broad range of scholarship opportunities. Most, however, are most scholarships are in the basketball, football arena, and most are not full scholarships. The whole concept of NIL money, I'm not really going to dive into that a whole lot as it is kind of an upper echelon piece. But that is, people talk about getting their sponsorship from the local Cadillac dealer. That's not going to be the case with most athletes at this point. Um, Division two, it's again, a large emphasis on, or a growing emphasis more on the scholarship, and being involved on campus. Not as much of a travel commitment. Your conferences are going to be more regionalized, whereas, you have the Big Ten conference at Division One ranges, literally from coast to coast. Your Division Two conferences are going to be much more local, much more regionalized to avoid that long travel. Again, emphasis on the student, but still a high level of competition. Division three, your focus and competition is much more limited to the competitive season. Um, you are a student. In some cases, even the coaches are maybe part-time on campus. So there's less of a time commitment across the board. But this is where most high school student athletes will, will continue on to, is the Division three level. Okay. Really quickly, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. These are schools that are roughly, this can be equated to the Division two NCAA level. Much more prevalent in the Midwest, the Great Lakes region. Strong academic commitment. Again, the kind of the region of competition will be much more local, so that there's not as much travel. There are athletic scholarships at the NAIA level. And then also, just to mention, the National Junior Collegiate Athletic Association, these are going to be your 2-year community college programs. Is a really, want to stress here, it's a really good option if you're looking to, you're coming out of high school, you want to build on your academics a little bit. You'd like to, get a little bit stronger, get a little bit, build your skills in your sport. It can be really a strong area to do just that. Okay.
So, Mike, I have a quick
Yep.
question.
Yep.
Maybe you're going to get to it, but it seems like this is a round where I could ask it.
Yeah.
Someone asked if the NCSA organization is a scam.
and CSA,
Okay.
referring to, um,
Yeah. Okay. So write in a little more about that and give us more information.
yeah. Tell me what the
Okay.
NCSA stands for. If it's a recruiting piece, then we can get a little deeper into that. But
Great.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, yeah. She said, yeah, it's recruiting for
recruiting.
sports. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll talk
Yeah,
about
we'll
that
talk a
more.
little bit about that in a little bit. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, so eligibility, the next couple of slides, we want to talk about eligibility. It's going to be different at the three NCAA levels, the different divisions, and then also what as far as eligibility at the NAIA and the JUCO level. Bottom line, I think this was on the other side, 2.3 or take a knee. That's kind of the rule of thumb. Um, if you don't have the minimum GPA coming out of high school, even in college, 2.3. So that's a C, like a C, D plus, C minus. Um, so basically that's what you're looking for. Okay. In that you want to have a C GPA. I would really like you to have a much higher GPA, but that's what we're looking for. Okay. Division one, obviously graduate high school. The next slide we will talk about the specific classes. You may hear from time to time the 10-7 rule, which means the 10 of the required classes must be completed by the start of the seventh semester, start of senior year. Um, that's a Division One rule. It's not the case in Division Two. And again, a 2.3 GPA in the 16 classes. Okay. No, there used to be a sliding scale. I don't want to confuse anybody, so we'll just say it. There's SATs and ACTs are no longer looking at the SATs. Okay. They're no longer part of the eligibility piece. Okay. I do want to say though, just because the NCAA may not be looking at the ACTs, SAT scores, an individual school or a major might still require a set of scores. Okay. So eligibility wise, you might not need them, but admission wise, they may be required. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about that also in a coming up slide. Division three, to be eligible, be admitted to the school. Okay, so it's going to be based on the college, on the university's admission standard. And if they are looking to admit you, you are academically eligible at Division three level. This slide can be a little bit confusing, but bottom line is it's really just laying out the classes required by the NCAA. And, while we're looking at 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of science, social studies here, the best recommendation I would give anybody in terms of, units of credit and all of that, um, a good rule of thumb, just take 4 years of English, math, science, social studies. I mean, that's gonna build your transcript. That's going to make you a stronger student. Not just in terms of athletic eligibility, but just being a good student. 4 years of English, math, science, social studies, um, will just put you on the right track for college admission. Regardless of your high school graduation requirement, I know most high schools require 4 years of math, and more than 2 years of social science. I mean, you need 3 years to graduate high school in Massachusetts. So, go beyond just the um, minimum requirements. Part of eligibility is also in the NCAA is being registered with the Eligibility Center. The Eligibility Center is like the front door to participation in athletics. It's an online process through the NCAA. Um, there are three different levels of eligibility certification that we'll talk about in just a second. It's an easy online registration. The high school, you will not be required to upload your transcript. Your high school will have access to an eligibility portal. And from the high school side, we will upload your transcript. Just let your guidance counselor, your registrar, however your school handles it, and talk to your athlete. In some schools, it's the athletic director. Um, and then they will upload your transcript to the eligibility center. If you are looking at Division 1 or 2 level competition, you will need an academic and athletic certification through the Eligibility Center. There is a fee. I believe this year it's $140. Don't quote me on that. Um, and that is to certify that you have the proper classes, the proper GPA. There will be a quick certification of your athletic amateurism, um, and that should be all set there. If you're looking at a Division 3 competition, just need a profile, what's referred to as the profile page. There's no fee for this. Your school will still upload your transcript, but it's just so that the NCAA is tracking who's going through the recruiting and admission process. In all cases, once you register with the Eligibility Center, you'll receive an NCAA ID. If that will be used by coaches um, and on campus so that they can track and keep track of everything through the NCAA, that their recruiting process um, is up to snuff on campus.
Now, Mike, someone just
Yep.
asked, when is the right time to register? Junior year, senior year?
As soon as possible. Some students have been as early as, seventh and eighth grade, if this is, and really, I wouldn't necessarily, certainly in seventh and eighth grade, I would not recommend, um, the academic and athletic certification, piece of this. But certainly create a profile page. It's free. You're not losing anything. You'll have your ID number. If by chance, in eighth grade, it's a lifetime before you get to freshman year college. Um, so a number of things can happen. But it's nice to have that ID in case things take a step in the right direction and you start being noticed by some high level and Division 1, 2 schools. And you can provide that ID and always, bump um your profile page to that next level of the certification page. But if you're truly interested, be patient with yourself, be patient with your student. Maybe create the profile page just to have it. But understand there's a lot of time between um, eighth grade and freshman year of college. In fact, and actually the opposite of that is also true. I've had a number of students, um, you know, not go to college to to play sports, and then call back and say that they were now interested. In fact, probably the biggest number of those have been football players not going on to college to play football, but when they get to college, they're recruited for crew, for rowing. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. And the college crew coach asked them to create an account, and we take care of that all after they've graduated high school. So there's not really a too early and possibly not really a too late either. Um, for the national athletic for the NAIA, again, it's 2.3 or higher. The difference here um, is it needs to be you need also two of the following: a cumulative GPA, and the unique one here is the class rank of you're in the top 50 of the graduating class. That's kind of the unique one that's different. If you don't have a 2.3 or higher, it needs to be a 2.0, one of these two following, a cumulative 2.0 in the top 50 graduating class, or the ACT score of 18 or 970 on the SATs. There is a similar to the Eligibility Center, just register with playnaia.org. It's their version of the NCAA's Eligibility Center. So, but the unique thing to point out here is in the top half, ranked in the top half of the graduating class. Um, Similar to Division III eligibility at the junior college athletic association, be high school graduates in good academic standing, and simply meet the entrance requirements of the institution. So fairly straightforward. Um, so it's very similar to Division III level. Just a quick piece on transferring, just because I know sometimes, in terms of going to a junior college, 2-year school, and then transferring, just want to put this here that if you are looking at transferring, when you get to the college level, it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of communication between both your current school and the school where you're going to transfer to. You'll need work with the athletic department, possibly your academic advisor or the registrar's office, in just getting your transcript forwarded over, ensuring that admissions and any kind of classes that you've taken at your first school will transfer over. And then, you want to make sure that you're taking rigorous classes right through high school, because you're transferring to school will also will most likely also request your high school transcript. So you want to make sure that even though you're planning on going to a 2-year community college and then continuing to a 4-year school, don't think that your high school transcript is no longer part of it. It will still be part of it. So make sure that you're maintaining um, rigorous classes through high school. Um, so I know the next couple slides are kind of what people really want to hear about the recruiting process and the search. The one thing that I do want to point out, just keep in mind that really only 2% of high school athletes are offered athletic scholarship. Um, you know, that's beyond a vast majority, that do not receive athletic scholarships. So, you may be captain of your team and all conference where you are. Um, there are literally millions of others playing at college athletics. Um, and so, I'm not saying that to burst your bubble or anything like that. I'm just saying, the higher emphasis is on um, making a good college choice and being comfortable where you enroll in school. So the first piece here is start early. Okay. we've said it first, the student is first, okay? It's a student athlete, okay? It's about choosing the right school. So, the campus setting, fit, all of those things that we talk when we talk about your when we talk about your college search process with every student, whether they're an athlete or not, it's about fit. Okay. It's not just fit of do I like the team? Do I like the coach? Do I like the campus? Am I going to be comfortable playing here? Am I going to be comfortable being a student here? When I go, are the residence halls comfortable? Do they even have my major? Why would it's a great team, it's a great coach, and you like the teammates, but they don't offer the major you're interested in. So really think of the whole package. Approach this as, you know, first from the standpoint of you're a student on campus and where do you want to be a student on campus? And then think about how do athletics fit into your experience on campus? What are your responsibilities? Are some coaches will run summer camps, they'll run youth camps. And do they have their athletes work those camps? Um, if if you're interested in being a nursing major or an engineering major, those course loads are substantial. And can you balance that with the athletic calendar? Will you need to take summer classes? And are those classes that you missed available in the summer? Really, how does the whole piece fit together? What does the whole puzzle look like? This really is the slide that I think people are always interested in is how do you get seen? How do you make a contact with coaches? Um, and there was that question earlier about recruiting companies. Um, I, I'm not going to advocate one. Are, are are those things scams? They can be. They can be because you can do a lot of this yourself. You can do a lot of this yourself. If you are diligent, organized, responsible, you can do this yourself. Um, there are opportunities to participate in camps and club teams that go to showcases, that go to um, scouting combines, that if you put yourself on those teams, if you're good enough to make those teams, I should say, and you're working with your high school coach, your club coach, your and you're participating in those programs, in those combines, in those showcases, you don't necessarily need a third party recruiter, almost like a headhunter. Um, you know, can they take some of the workload off of you? Yeah, but I think you can do if you're diligent, if you're focused, if you're talented enough, if you're talented enough, you're going to get seen. If you're talented enough, you're going to be invited to these camps. Okay. One of the first things, and again, we're also talking about um, there is a discrepancy between talent. Um, if you are good enough, you're going to be seen. Most high school athletes will be participating, continuing on to the Division III level, where where those coaches don't necessarily have the resources to get to more of your games, of your high school games, of your club games. And that's where some legwork on your part can really carry the day. So, sending an email, sending a communication to coaches, with very basic, your name, your NCAA ID, your height, weight, positions, how do they get in touch with you? Share your scores, share your GPA, share your transcript if you have it. They want to know if you're going to be academically worth pursuing. They're not going to want to take a if it's a high academic school, a coach may only have so many options to go to the admissions office to stick their neck out for somebody who may not meet the academic standards at that school. So make sure that you're academically eligible at that Division III school. Share your coach's name and their contact information. And then really, most high schools, club teams will have, like a huddle account, or, if you're playing baseball, if you participate in PBR scouting combines, they will be in a position where they can provide um, uh, film clips, and scouting reports that they have written for you. And again, you don't need a third party recruiter. If you're playing some of these, I'm using PBR as an example right now. Um, Prep Baseball Reports, they will provide you a scouting report that you don't need the third party recruiter to do. They can work with you to provide that information for you. Um, and bottom line is, if the student athlete is initiating the contact, um, that that shows a level of responsibility, a level of maturity that's going to be attractive to a coach, that a coach is going to want to see. Um, so I think that's also a place where you can demonstrate your readiness, your willingness to engage in on a college campus, on a college team.
And Mike, just because I
Yeah.
asked you that question earlier, is the NCSA a scam? I just wanted to report that there is a parent who wrote in and just said, I just wanted to say that we have had a very good experience with them in terms of getting in front of
Yeah.
relevant coaches. So I
Yeah.
felt like I needed to balance that.
Yeah, yeah, and I certainly wouldn't say don't use it, don't do it.
Yeah.
I would only say it, there are places where it can be helpful, and there's plenty of opportunities where you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
There are
That's
plenty of
great.
opportunities where you can do it yourself. Um, and then, as when you have that opportunity to talk with a coach, um, you know, these are just some simple questions. That might want to ask. Specifically the second one. You're interested in majoring in nursing, engineer, and I always use those because those are heavy duty courses of study. How does that impact affect the athletic competition? Um, what the other one I like is what's the meal plan options? Um, at that point, I know in our house, you're probably cheaper going away to school than feeding them here. Um, so what are those options available to you? And also really what's the application process? College coaches, their athletics, not admissions. A college coach cannot offer you an admission to the university, to the college. That will come from the admissions office. So you need to work with admissions. The coach may help you and guide you through it, but the admissions office will be the one that um, uh, works that side of the house. Um, and then, in terms of Division One, two level, um, what happens when the, um, what happens if the coach leaves? What happens, um, how does the transfer portal impact at the Division One or two level? Are they looking at other position players similar to where you're at? Um, you know, I, there are other athletes being recruited. So how do they all fit together? So just again, it comes down to fit. Same thing as when we're choosing a college at any point. How are you going to fit um, into the program? Um, just a couple slides here regarding the calendar. And again, this is more of an NCAA piece, more so than the other associations. Um, and I was blanking on the term earlier, but compliance officer, that's going to be your person on campus. The compliance office is going to be where your eligibility, you're really going to work with that person to to know that you're ready to go. Okay. Just a couple quick points in terms of ter common terms you might hear. A contact, simply anytime a coach says more than hi. Any kind of face-to-face meeting is considered a contact. And there are certain times in the calendar where there's a contact period or dead period, meaning there are certain times in the calendar. This is all going to be depending on the sport and whether in season or out of season, when a coach can or cannot talk with you or your family. So just be aware of contact period and dead period. An evaluation is simply any time a coach is watching you, evaluating your practice, competition. This includes summer showcases or tournaments you may go to. My boys played lacrosse, so going up to UMass in the summer or Stowe, Vermont in the summer. There's coaches all over the places. Those are all well within the evaluation period. So again, those are calendar days where coaches can watch you. An official visit, and this is at the Division One or two level. An official visit is where the college pays for you, some members of your family to come to campus. Housing, meals, um, and then some participation or going to a game, including the ticket to that, in order to um, be okay to participate in an official visit or be offered an official visit. Remember, you have to have your certification account with the eligibility center. Um, Unofficial visit is anytime, you're going on your own dime to visit campus. Um, just remember, the dead period and contact period. You cannot do an official visit in a dead period. Um, but you can visit campuses, anytime. It may be an unofficial. Um, Some things to keep in mind, okay, as we're going through this whole process, your grades, okay? Again, you're a student athlete. If your GPA falls below eligibility, and just because the NCAA says 2.3, the institution may set a higher standard for eligibility. Okay, 2.3 is just the bare minimum. And anytime I hear somebody say bare minimum, you'd better be working a heck of a lot harder to be well above that. So make sure that grades, and again, there are majors that are going to be considerably more difficult, more challenging, more rigorous, additional labs, expectations. So maintaining grade is can be tough. The second point here, desire to play. We're going to talk about this in a second also. Um, y- this is the student that wants to play. Make sure that you want to be there. Um, you know, it's not just the student's interest, but also as parents, we have to have, a reality of the ability. Okay. We all put our kids on a pedestal. And I've been on, and I think we've all been on sidelines where, um, boy, I've heard some comments of like, that kid's really great. And I'm like, okay. Um, and that's not belittling somebody's ability. It's just the reality of the situation. It's very easy to be a big fish in a small pond. But again, there's a million other athletes out there vying to play college athletics. Um, so just something to throw out there. And then again, we talked about mostly at the Division 1, 2 level is the transfer portal and how that has impacted the recruiting and just movement from team to team over the past few years. Just a quick piece about the student athlete. This top bullet is, when I was staffing an event with UConn basketball. And after the game, one of the players was, signing autographs and, taking pictures with a bunch of kids. And the academic advisor, is working through, they also, I think she even said like there's a Sports Illustrated photo shoot the next day or something like it. And she legitimately asked, what class do I have tomorrow? It's a lot. And I think that's a lot mostly primarily at the Division 1 level. Um, I don't know how many Division 3 teams are being stalked by Sports Illustrated and 50 kids asking for autographs after a game. Um, but just to be aware, the investment of time um, at the Division 1, Division 2 level is substantial. Um, and that's why on campus there are academic advisors, and that's not just Division 1 and 2. Some Division 3 programs will have an academic advisor, and that's really a good question to ask as you're going through this process. Ask the coach, ask the athletic department, what help is there for, particularly in season. Um, what support is there for athletes, so that sometimes there'll be study halls, mandatory study halls. I remember working at Providence, and we would have study halls all the time for the student athletes, so that they can again maintain eligibility. um, just a quick just a quick slide to keep in mind, like the desire to play. Is it us as parents that are really like, hey, it would be great if my kid uh, was a star athlete at Notre Dame. Yeah, that's great. Um, but if my kid really doesn't want to play, um, I got to have that honest conversation. I got to have that honest conversation with the coach. Can they? Should they? Just something to. I just want to. It's just something I always want to share. Um, that sometimes we need to have these honest conversations of who's we've put our kids in sports from first grade, if not earlier, and they've been playing for the past 12 years. Um, do they want to keep going? Really? Um, and so just something to just a talking point. And if they do fantastic, great. It's um, there's study after study, proven after time that students that participate in college athletics repeatedly have demonstrated um, incredible job potential, leadership. Employers look for student athletes because, especially, successful student athletes, because they know you've proven that you can balance time commitment. You've proven that you're responsible. You've proven a level of maturity that you can't um, anywhere else on campus. So being a student athlete can really head and shoulders put you in a great place post college. Um, and so one of the other things to be aware of is, um, if you do need that time to get a little stronger, to get your grades up a little bit more, to hit the weight room a little bit more, improve your skills. Prep school can be a great, post-grad year can be a great place to do that, where you don't tap into your years of eligibility at the college level. Um, it can be a great spot for that. And also a good avenue for recruiting too, to be honest. The many post grad programs um, are known by college coaches as, can be a real strong feeder um, into the college onto the college team. So something to be aware of. Um, so before I finish that, another one of the other pieces that I neglected to mention on a previous slide is um, quite honestly club sports. Um, outside of um, uh, the intercollegiate athletic, if somebody is interested in, I want to keep playing, but I'm not committed time-wise to the team. Club sports on campus can be a great option to, maintain that level of competition, but not the level of time. I've had a few of my kids have gone um, uh, college and played at club level, and it's been a great place for them to actually develop and increase leadership skills because they're the ones coordinating the games, coordinating the tournaments, coordinating travel that the athletic department does not. Just throwing that out there as something to be aware of as you're looking at schools, um, just to know that's out there. Um, so I'm pretty confident there's a lot of questions. Um, um, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. Um, yeah.
Well, I'll ask you one, and then folks can. Okay, I see. Yep, they're coming in
Yeah,
now.
they're starting to come. Okay, there you go.
But one is, can you just talk a little bit about sending videos? And this person
Yeah.
is actually asking about volleyball.
Yep. Um, so, programs like I know our school uses Huddle. Um, And so the coach will, or the athletic department, sometimes an AAU club or lockdown or whatever club you're playing with, may have an account. Um, or even if you go to tournaments, that tournament will provide um, video of your games. Then you would just access, basically send a link, um, a link to that video, to the coach. There are there are some sports. that lend itself, you want to see the whole game. There are some sports that lend themselves to highlights. Um, Volleyball, is probably one of those sports, where you want to see the movement of the six on each side, where you want to see the whole game rather than individual highlights. I mean, you might have some great highlights and show that too. Um, you know, um, Baseball may, you know, show plays that you've participated. If you're playing right field and you've got ball after ball to left field, you can show how you back up a throw. But you want to show specific to your sport, the clips that you have. But you can send links to the clips depending on what platform you're using. Just links so that the coach can sign in and see you in action.
That's great. And this is a good question. Setting scholarship opportunities aside, does students' interest and skills in playing a sport, particularly sports other than football and basketball, enhance their application to the school?
Do the athletic skills impact admission? Is that
Yeah, I suppose I maybe probably said another way, um, skipping, not worrying about the money, but
right? The straight
just the
admission
fact that a
piece.
student is playing and enjoying a sport and
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's being a student athlete, similar to like what I was saying earlier, that, participating in college athletics, it really does increase your job outlook after college. Participating in high school athletics does can really increase your chances of admission.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Athletics is a great way to show, your commitment over time, you know, you know, your responsibility to a team, your leadership potential, your engagement, your maturity, not just, great, you're a starter, but I mean, I can show you video after, news clip after news clip of um, Gino Auriemma talking about players can be more valuable on the bench than on the court. Um, he's watching as he's recruiting um, basketball players, he's looking at as they come off the court, what's their affect, what's their demeanor when they go to the bench. Um, those are things that a high school athlete can demonstrate to admissions, um, by being a good student athlete, you're a good student.
Yeah,
Um, and that's attractive to admissions.
yeah, that's great. And believe it or not, I think everyone was asking their questions as we went along. I'll give it another
That wasn't a lot. I didn't do that
30
good.
seconds. I know. Are there any further questions? Well, it's a very comprehensive presentation. That was great, Mike. I'll just see if anyone else has any more, but I'm not seeing any.
I know the big thing is the getting seen, um, and that reaching out, that recruiting. It's a balance between putting yourself out there and being recruited, so to speak.
Mm,
Um, and especially at the Division 3 level, um, a lot of times it can be the student that takes the first step, especially geographically. If you're looking at schools outside of areas that a college coach will travel to a tournament or a showcase, um, especially geographically, um, it's probably going to be the student that takes the first step of this matchmaking process.
yeah, yeah,
And then once you get yourself in front of the eyes of the coach, um, then it becomes a more of a two-way conversation than anything. So,
That makes sense.
and and those, the discrepancy between in the high school level between a Division I caliber student and everybody else,
Hmm.
um, it's substantial.
Yeah.
It's more than just, there's an eye test that it's pretty easy to see. So,
Yeah. And there is one last question.
yep.
Any specific comments on track athletes? All the same stuff, getting seen, what to
Yeah,
expect to measure.
track and swimming,
Yeah.
the clock doesn't lie. Um, the clock doesn't lie. So similar to that reaching out to coaches, um, send a list of your PRs, the events, um, the events that you've run, um, and quite honestly, the events you like to run and the events you hate to run. Coming out of high school, I hated the 800, and I never told anybody that I ran that. Um, um, but then, if you do have, there is something to be said if you do have film, especially for sprinters. I've coached track too. Um, if you're putting up a good time in the 50, the 100, the hurdles, high jump, um, if you're putting up solid times and your form is ugly, that can really be attractive to a coach, a college coach, because if you have a good time with ugly form, a good coach can clean that form up and get a lot more speed out of you. Um, I'm not saying if you have great form and you have a good time, that's the best you're going to get. I'm not saying that. Um, but you know, just as you get strong, as you get bigger, as you get stronger, you're going to get faster. But yeah, the clock doesn't lie. So share events, share your PRs in all events that you've run, even the ones you
Yeah.
don't like to run. The 800, I hate the 800.
That's great. And
Um,
actually, someone else also asks, do you have any thoughts about making sure you're getting an honest evaluation from the high school coach? This person has boys soccer is the sport.
yeah, and I think I know where you're going with this. Um, the honest evaluation from a high school coach. Um, I think I know where you're going. Share, let the coach speak for themselves. Let the coach speak for themselves. If it needs to be taken with a grain of salt, then so be it. But that's up to the college. The college coach will be the one that puts eyes on you just the same.
Hmm.
Um, and they will know if your style of play, if your ability of play, if your caliber of play, whatever you want to say, um, meets what they're looking for on their team.
That's good.
Um, so I think I understand what you're saying about the college coach's assessment, but that's one. You're really interested in the college coach's assessment, um, and work with them and work with them.
And then I think the last question here, because you talked about track, do students need to perform well in more than one event with track?
Um, it's when you get it in high school, it's nice to be diverse. At the college level, you'll probably, especially at a Division I program, you will probably be asked to focus on one or two
Hmm.
events.
Hmm.
Um, sprint, distance. Um, of course, I'm going to be hypocritical here and say decathlon, where you're doing 10 events. Um, but at the high school level, if you're a sprinter, um, it's good to demonstrate you can do, indoor 50, outdoor 100, the 200, mile, 2 mile, if you're a distance runner. Um, it's a long way of saying a high school track is going to be coached a lot differently. At the college level, you will become more specialized
Yep.
by that program's coach.
Yep. And then any comment on swimming, any disadvantage for not being in a club team, just on the high school team?
I don't think so. Disadvantage, disadvantage, I wouldn't think so, only because not to say there are so few
Mm-hmm.
club swimming teams, they're not as prevalent as, club lacrosse and club
Mm-hmm.
soccer and club volleyball. Um, there aren't too many club track and swimming teams. Sure, your local YMCA may have something. Um, but if you're comfortable, and you have, for something like swimming, I would, time yourself in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Send a video, record your own video, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be kind of fun to put a GoPro on your head and go. Um, but
Yeah.
swimming and track are you know, little bit different in that, there's not too many off-season kind of things. Maybe the Bay State games can be a place to engage, do some competition outside of the high school season.
Yep.
Something like that. Maybe your local Y has a meet coming up, that you can enter individually.
Um,
I wouldn't necessarily disadvantage. I wouldn't necessarily use that word though.
that's good. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for
You
all of
bet.
that. It's been wonderful to have you be able to talk about all these different things. And thank you all for your participation and good questions. And thank you. And everyone have a
You bet.
wonderful evening.
Thanks. Helpful, helpful.